All right. Hey, welcome, my friends. I am Kaufman, and we are doing a little late night writing sesh. So it's going to be super casual to this evening, very informal. Feel free to come join along. I am ready and determined. Get my lighting to not mess with me. I am ready and determined to finish Last Scarecrow. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Feel free to come join me and let's see what mischief we can get with our characters this evening. All right, and I have my setup. So because I'm focused on getting through the end of the story, I'm not going to be doing any writing sprints this evening. I'm just going to throw up some music. Feel free to come join if you need to get some writing done, or editing, or brainstorming, or kick back, relax as I write the very last scene of The Last Scarecrow. What will this last scene consist of? Hey, what's up, Eli? Welcome, my friend. Glad, thank you for joining me for this late writing session. Okay, so I'm just going to get straight into it. I've been thinking about this for a while and asking myself, what's the last thing that we need to end this epilogue on? So far, we have two scenes of the epilogue. The first one is a callback to the golden sunflower, who is more crazed and demented since we last saw them much earlier in the story, as they are now plotting revenge against Scarecrow, Pixie, and Crow, who clearly they've their characters are in a much different state now. And then we also got a reference to the Tiger King, our villain from the midpoint of the story, who's turned from an aggressor into following a prophet who rises up and says that they're going to find a new kingdom and they will get their revenge against the straw man, the pixie, and the crow. So we are there's some enmity here. Clearly, our heroes have upset quite a few individuals throughout the course of their journey. What other individuals are going to get a callback? So let's do it. I'm going to throw up some music and I am going to write. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. This is it. Let's see. I'm going to put right here in bold the end. I'm like, wow. That's it. That's the end of the epilogue. Wow. 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 I'm gonna give myself a round of applause. Feel accomplished. Woo! And that, my friends, marks the end of the rough draft of the last Scarecrow. Wow. Woo! Oh man. The rough draft comes in at a grand total of 140,000 words. Like, the rough draft is literally at 140,000 words. I was like, wow. I literally started this. I started the last Scarecrow exactly 7 months ago, January 1st. So this is what, 7 months? I mean, what's day 217 of streaming? So I could say that it probably took me about 200 days of consecutive writing streams to write the rough draft of Last Scarecrow. Oh man, yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I see all your guys' support in here. It's awesome. Hey, what's up, RA? Go, go, go. You can do this. And I was like, I made it. Woo! I appreciate all the love, my friends. Happy to see all you in here. Love it. The draft, 140,000 words is impressive. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So excited for you. You did it. Woo! I know. I was like, oh, I knew it. Like I knew I had to finish it today. I was like, oh man. I knew I could do it. Wow. I'm happy you dared to leave your old job, man. Yeah, that's it's it's been quite a journey so far, but it's literally been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. Really happy for it. Still a learning process. There's it's all comes with like starting a new business, but yeah, I was just so miserable previously, and I think now I get to do what I love literally all the time, and hopefully like helping a lot of writers out there is super cool. I still can't believe that I just finished the rough draft. I might be in a little bit of disbelief right now. So at 140,000 words, let's see how many pages it is. Let's see. Did I blow up my chapters? Okay, so we're going to make everything Georgia. Hmm. Yeah, so everything's Georgia, double spaced. I want to say it's all double spaced for the most part. I would say 1.5 is probably more what you would see in an actual book. So with that being said, with it being about 1.5 spacing, um, so 140,000 words on at least a Word document is putting it at about 580 pages. Wow. Wow, 580 pages, roughly, at 140,000 words. That's crazy. And so clearly, Marcel, like so happy I got to witness you write those magical final words. The end. I'm really happy that all you guys joined me. Thank you. Thank you all for being here with me. This is a really cool moment. I like I said, it's totally unplanned. I didn't know when I would finish this, but I'm pretty proud that it took me roughly about 7 months to write this rough draft. And yeah, I'm really happy with how the overall story came out. I'm really happy with how the rough draft came out. I think it's in a much better place than I really thought that it would. Hmm. And now we get to start on the exciting part of this journey of editing. We get to start on the exciting second draft of editing this story. Oof, that's going to be fun. The format of the format of the writing streams will probably shift a little bit as I figure out what's going to work best, so I can include all of you along in the journey of the editing phase. I know one of the biggest not challenges, but I know one of the things that I need to focus on. So like it will probably take me about 3 months, is my guess, to get to this next phase of editing it. Um, I know the plot is very sound. I'm actually really confident about the plot. I know the biggest things I need to work on and improve is I need to work on the world building. The world itself feels a little flat to me at sometimes. And then a lot of the supporting characters need to be further fleshed out. And then beyond that, just adding descriptions and punching some of the things up. The first like 10% of Scarecrow need to give it a little bit more action, so it has the epic vibe that I decided upon when I got about 30% of the story. So, you know, I might write a prologue for it. I'm thinking about if a prologue is necessary or not. But yeah, and I mean overall, like I said, it's about 140,000 words. I probably have to cut it down to probably about 100,000. I think to fall within my genres, like within the fantasy genres, like demographic and targeting for the average fantasy story, and for it to be as digestible, I probably need to get this story overall closer to the 100,000 word count, which should be easier. I feel like there's probably a lot of chapters where I probably like droned on a little bit more, either through because it was a live stream format or because sometimes I use too much description. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't actually feel like it will be too difficult of a task to cut out about 40,000 and get it closer to 100. Let's see. Neil, you had a great question. You're like, how much of this draft did you plot or pants? So great question. So I started last Scarecrow, and you guys can actually see here. So I started last Scarecrow based on this image, January 1st. This was the image that I started off as a free write on January 1st. This was a 2-page free write that I just got an idea. I was like, oh, it looks like there's a Scarecrow down there. So I just went into it as a free write. Over the course of January, I continued treating it as a free write when I worked on the story every like couple days or so. And I want to say by the end of January, I wanted to say I had about 2 or 3 chapters. And then I was kind of thinking about like the character, and I was thinking about the potential world that I had there. And I realized there were a lot of themes that I had briefly touched upon in those first couple of chapters that I really wanted to further develop into like a full world. I love the idea of a scarecrow type character, and I love these some of the ideas and things that I was really motivated by. So I want to say I was probably about maybe 20% into it. And that's when I pulled back. I did a full outline of the entire story based on a chapter by chapter. I plotted out all the chapters. And for me, that was like I did like potential like chapter titles based off the beats that I felt were going to be right for it. I think my original vision ended the book with about 40 chapters. I think it was around the 40 mark. And then the actual book ends with, let's see how many. So this is the epilogue. Yeah, so that's the epilogue. I forgot what was the chapter. What was the number? Chapter 54. So technically with the epilogue, 55 chapters. So the actual book ended with 55 chapters, which is pretty cool. But like I said, my original plan, I thought it would be 40. But it's like the further that I get into the story, like some chapters I turned into multiple chapters. And there were just areas that I knew it needed to be fleshed out. So I had a core outline by about 20% into it. And I think that helped continue building the roadmap. So when I was working in early parts of the story, I'm like, okay, well, I know I always need to get them to major events. Like I was big on having major events and major moments in the story. I always knew what the climax and the ending was going to be. And I knew what Scarecrow's overall journey was going to look like. So then the writing process itself was just me being able to like play along and have fun and being able to explore. And a lot of you have been here throughout the past 6 months or 7 months at different various stages. So you guys have seen like some days have been great, some days have been a struggle, but you know what? You keep on writing, keep on working because I love it. Thanks for asking that. No, can't wait to read the final copy. I know, right? That'll be super exciting. If all goes perfectly, my in a perfect world, my goal is to spend the next 3 months getting this into a second draft. Then I'll probably take that into a third draft myself offline, and then I'll give it to an editor. That will probably take about 2 months overall to get it through another editing draft once it's been edited by someone else. And then I'll usually give it one more go. I like to have my books go through about 5 drafts, and I'm very structured in that each draft I have an intention for what I need to accomplish for the draft. So before I'm feel confident that I'm good with it being published, um, 5 drafts. I think it can be done in about 6 months. In a perfect world, my goal is to publish this for what, August, September, October, November, December. It's about 5 months. So my goal in a perfect world is to publish this book, The Last Scarecrow, a Dawn of Magic series, to publish it on January 1st of 2025. So in a perfect world, that's when my goal will be to publish it. Editing sucks. Yeah, you know what? I actually don't dislike editing at all. I think the problem that I see a lot of writers hit with editing is that editing uses a lot less of the creative side of your brain when you're working on your story, because obviously you're fixing things. I think the obstacle that most writers run into is that because they're not using the creative side, they're using the fixing side. They don't. It's easier to lose motivation, since a lot of writers are love writing when they're feeling motivated. But then when they're not feeling motivated, it can become and feel like work. Writers who are writing and they're not making money off of it, you don't want to spend your free time doing work, right? So that happens to a lot of writers that I see out there. My personal strategy to like that I usually use with overcoming the editing phase is I make the editing phase fun for myself. I'm always been a gamer, so I use a couple of different strategies. A, to make successful habits, and B, to create realistic goals, and C, to be able to leverage my creativity, to leverage my motivation, my inspiration, the things that I love about the writing process. I translate that into the editing process, so I still make the editing process fun and I'm still getting to use the creative side of it. It's just a different type of creativity since it's being balanced with fixing things. Let's see. Eli, I'm very interested to see how much changes as you move to the next draft. Yeah, and I mean, I'll go into this a little bit more on tomorrow's stream. As tomorrow, Monday, I'm going to roadmap what like the next month will look like, because I'm gonna have to change my format here for to make it more friendly for editing. So yeah, I'll go over that tomorrow. But I know my overall goals, Eli, for the second draft is number one, cut out 40,000 words. Number two, make the world itself more believable in the scope of the world that I'm trying to create. Three, making the supporting characters feel more believable through a use of a more clear description that matches different animal types. Those will be my 3 priorities as I go into the second draft. I, of course, will have a laundry list of other things, like more minor things that I know need to be touched upon, but those will be my 3 biggest priorities. I have probably a list of about 30 things that I know need to be fixed in my mind. But yeah, well, I'll list all that out tomorrow as I kind of get into the minutia of it. For editing, I go into everything with a plan. I like to make sure that I'm clear on what needs to be fixed. So that way I can just start at the beginning, go page by page, because I don't want to waste time. So I want to make sure that as I go through it, I'm being intentional with my time. So I'll probably end up spending the next week or maybe 2, depending. I'm gonna spend the next week on planning on how this second draft's going to my, how the second draft will go. Alright, like, I'd gotten my last work to just under 280,000 words in just over 4 months. That's amazing, by the way. That's like, alright, you definitely deserve, like, a clap for that, my friend. That's a real accomplishment there. That's a lot in just over 4 months. Do not recommend trying for draft one, and I was seriously exhausted by that point. Yeah, by the way, most I recommend this to most writers. They should usually take a break after the rough draft. After writing that much, like, I should definitely take a break. I asked myself if I wasn't live streaming this, would I take a break from Last Scarecrow? Maybe, maybe not, but I feel so motivated by the story, and I'm having so much fun with it. And I've kind of set this goal that I really want to publish it January 1st of next year. That I honestly just feel like motivated. I'm like, let's just get into it, which is hence why I'm not going to take a break from it. 2024 is the year of the last Scarecrow. I'm like, I'm pretty good with that. Let's see. You're closer than I am at guesstimating. I was aiming for a novella and 95 chapters later. And but I mean, like, I think it's good to make a plan, but then to also be all right with ourselves when things change, right? I was like, what? I planned what 40 chapters and ended up with 55. I planned what about a 90,000 word rough draft and ended up at about 140,000. So I totally get it. I'm also of the mindset that you have to follow the story that needs to be told, and let the characters tell whatever their story is. So I know that sometimes that hits your goal, and other times it changes. I keep saying, but this next one will be a novella, then 100,000 later. Nope, I'm just a liar to myself. That just means, all right, you probably just have that good of a story. And so, okay, I might start with soft edit first. So I can just more or less enjoy the story, then hard edit, then soft edit again. No, I think everybody has their own process. I think that's a really interesting strategy. Yeah, I know I, like, literally just touched upon that, but yeah, make sure, check back in for tomorrow, and you can kinda see what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a little bit more of a deep dive of all these specific goals for this second draft. What are your other books? Are they already published? So that's a great question. So for what's interesting is I've been writing my entire life. I probably have well over 30 to 50 unfinished, unpublished projects in my catalog between short stories, let's say short stories, some longer length stories, and scripts. I have definitely quite a collection. And there's a couple of like the scripts that I published on through web series over time when I did these video series, and they were a lot of fun. But for the longest time, I had a problem with not putting my stuff out there, and I don't know whether that was a personal thing or whether I just lost motivation or for whatever reason. Even though I know I've been writing my entire life, but then people would always ask me like, "Oh, so you're a writer? Okay, what do you have published?" And I'd be like, "Well, I have nothing published." And for the longest time, I thought that I wasn't a real writer. I thought I was a failure because people would ask me that when you identify as a writer, people want to hear what has been published. It took me hitting this part of my life, quitting the day job and starting this journey to realize that not being published doesn't make you any less of a writer or an author. Because I believe that being both a writer, being an author is a mindset. It's a lifestyle choice. What I realized is I had spent the past 25, 30 years of my life practicing at my writing. Some of those stories that I have in my catalog, I'll probably continue working on. Some of them I may or may not return to, but I feel like I'm at a good place where I'm just like I'm very confident, and I didn't realize it till I hit this point in my storytelling journey that like I had just spent so much time practicing. I realized to get ready for this chapter in my life, and I feel very confident. Like with Last Scarecrows, the Last Scarecrow, I'm going to say will probably be my first officially published book. that I will go through the whole self-publishing phase and all of that. I have a lot of stories online, Marcella. If you ever want to check out any of like my short stories, I have a couple available. I have a portfolio on my website, the-creative-ghost.com. I'll drop it here. You probably have my website already, but I'll throw that up here. So yeah, if you want to check it out, here you go. I just linked the portfolio, my writing portfolio in the chat. So if you want to like check out some more of my writing, I have like a couple other things on there. I'm, it's my eventual goal to have all of my short stories on my portfolio. So get there eventually, so that when people ask, they can at least still see like what like my style of writing is like. I know, right? We're weirdos, not like and I know some people do enjoy writing, but like from what after talking with like hundreds upon hundreds of writers these past 7 months, I would say like the greater like 70% of writers do not like editing. That's interesting. Yeah, that'll be cool. It'll be a cool process. I'm looking forward to being able to kind of show you guys what that looks like. So if there's anything that I really want to accomplish, I want to show that the writing process, the editing process can be made easier with the right framework, because I want each of you to get your books published as well. I want us to be able to get more awesome stories out there. Yeah, so I've always been very old school with the types of tools that I use, especially before the live streaming phase. Everything I do has always been with like Microsoft Word. At least the easy stuff for the computer. I've always used whiteboards, sticky notes, notebooks, papers. Like usually my room's like my room or my studio is a hot mess because I love seeing the visual. I'm going to be, hopefully we'll see. I'm looking for, and I'm hoping to do some type of maybe like partnership with some of the online writing software, one of the online writing software like companies, because I want to be able to show a lot of these things through the screen, and doing it through a screen format where I can kind of save the progress as I'm going over time with the live stream will just make it a little bit more accessible to just this format as a live stream, as compared to me showing stuff on a wall, which I don't think is going to be as beneficial. Let's see, would those be close to general goals you work on in draft two, or specifically for this story? Like world building, secondary characters is always second draft, maybe. So that's a great question, Eli. I For me, a second draft, the goals of a second draft is different for every story. And the reason being, okay, well actually let me clarify. So the goal of a second draft should be to fix and refine any major glaring problems of the overall story that would prohibit the reading experience from being at least a smooth-ish experience. My my idea of how a second draft should come out is, the after a second draft is out, somebody should be able to read it, even though there's probably going to be a lot of spelling mistakes. There'll be a lot of structural mistakes. Some things here and there probably still won't make sense, like technicalities, but the overall story should make sense. The characters should be believable to a certain extent. Your hero should, their core emotional journey should be fleshed out, and the world itself should be believable. Um, and I think that's where a story should be at after its second draft. And because every rough draft is different for every writer, that's why the goals for the second draft, at least um in my belief, is different for every story, because every story is in a different place at the end of a rough draft. And that is contingent on what type of story you're telling and the skill of the writer. Writers who've been writing for 30 years, are their rough draft is going to be at a higher level than a writer who just, this is like their first year of writing, right? So skill is a factor in the overall drafting process. Another reason why authors who published books or publish multiple books are able to figure out and form a consistency, because they have a process that works and a framework that's effective. So really, really great question, Eli. Absolutely really great. My mom wants to write a memoir. She's watching this with me, and she just said she's learning from you. Aw, that's so sweet. That's awesome. I've memoirs are great. I'm working on with one of my clients right now. When one of my clients hired me to develop a memoir for them. It's really fun actually. I get like it's different. It's a different part of my brain when I switch from fantasy to nonfiction. And but it's once again it's characters. So it's like literally somebody tells me the story they want to tell, and then I like turn them into characters, and it's like this emotional story because everybody has their own story to tell. It's like memoirs is definitely a fun category. Absolutely, that's cool. I appreciate your mama for joining us, Marcella. I'm glad she's getting value out of it too. I love that both of you guys are writers. That's so cool. I'm the only writer in my family, but me and my brother are both the artists. Yeah, I didn't want to lose the mojo with that one, so I scheduled regular vacations 2 to 3 times a month. Unplug for about 2 hours to do something outside and completely unrelated. Yeah, I mean that's what you should do. I'm like, I'm going crazy, right? I'm going hardcore because A, I'm building up a business, and B, I'm writing a book. So because between the two of those, I'm spending probably 12 to 15-hour days between business development and the book stuff I'm doing and my other life responsibilities. So, but I love it. I'm loving it. I'm loving every moment of this process. For me, I'm just enjoying the journey. And I think allowing myself to enjoy the journey, have clear end goals, but not letting the journey itself minimize or prohibit my progress or my emotional well-being or my state of mind is has proved to be very beneficial so far. But I've read the popular TikTok books and that have many errors, so I feel a lot better about myself after. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times these TikTok books come out with so many errors is because they're probably writers who don't have enough to pay for an editor, right? And professional editing services are expensive. Obviously, they're broken up into developmental editing, line editing, copy editing are the three most predominant ones. But on average, low end, like you're probably looking at least at $1,000 to get your book edited. Real talk. And I'm saying like a book that's probably at least more than 70,000 words on average. And 1,000 is low end. It can range from like 1,000 to a couple thousand to get a book edited. So a lot of these authors, because they probably don't have the funds to invest in that, to invest in it getting edited, because that's probably not their main source of income, end up hitting that dilemma of like, okay, well, clearly I might not publish this if I don't have the funds for it, or I could put it out there and still keep working. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I think it just depends on what your personal goals are. If you're the type of person where you're like, hey, if I don't have the money to pay for a professional editor and that's going to prohibit me from ever publishing a book, then I would just do your best and publish it and just keep moving on. Because the great thing is, you can always come out with a second edition of the book. There are certain rules and requirements that go into differentiating a second edition from a first edition, but you can absolutely publish different editions of the book later on. That's what I recommend. If somebody's like feels like they're prohibited by not being able to afford an editor, publish the first draft, publish whatever draft you have that you feel confident about, put it out there, come back to it in a few years when you can afford like editing services and come out with a different draft. By then, you'll probably be farther along in the story. You might have more books out, and it just different part. That's what I'd recommend. All right, I like your style. Marcel, thanks. I'll definitely check them out. I felt the same way about my work. I've had this idea in my head since high school, but only managed to finish it now. And that happens to a lot of us, right? Like sometimes we have stories in our minds and our brains like forever. And then like we hit the day where we just suddenly feel like we're inspired. We're like, all right, now I'm gonna start working on the story. Last Scarecrow is probably actually one of the first stories where it hadn't been ruminating in my brain for years. A lot of the themes that I've explored in it are themes that I've wanted to write about for a while, but the story itself was 100% completely came from the free write. Atomic, that's a really good call out. You were saying also for formatting the book after edits, Draft to Digital will let you use their software for free, and you can use the finished PDF without having to publish through them. That's actually really good. So anybody who's looking for, it sounds like a free software, so free writing software, um, and especially formatting. I did will draft to digital. Will let you use their software for free. Yeah. So that's actually a really good resource, Atomic. Thanks for sharing that. Oh, no, yeah, you're totally all good. I'm, like, so motivated. If I wasn't super tired, I would go into a whole editing session right now. Yeah, totally no worries, my man. I get it. Let's see, honestly, to some degree, I've been working on this concept since I was a kid. Much of the building was based on how I used to play with my dolls. I think that's awesome, right? Because I think we pull from our personal experiences, whether we're writing a true story of the time that I climbed Mount Everest, not me, but just in general, whether you're writing a true story or you're writing a fantasy or a fiction story about knights and dragons, right? We're still pulling from our personal experiences through the characters and the worlds that we're developing. And I think that's incredible. It's one of the things I love about the writing process. Darth, welcome to the stream, by the way, Darth. This is a really good cause. He said, when it comes to character scripting, I found writing their weaknesses should come before scripting their strengths, in my opinion. That's a really interesting that's a really interesting way to tackle it. That way you don't overpower your characters by accident. I absolutely love that. I think that's really, really a good way to tackle it. Yeah, because I think a lot of writers, at least for more like the pantsers who probably don't plan beforehand, a lot of times they probably end up planning or putting more of like the strengths and the awesome things into their character. Sometimes not maybe it might not be thinking through the weaknesses and are the weaknesses enough to balance the strengths. I think that's a really good way of looking at it, in all honesty. Yeah, I always ask myself, like, and I remember I did this with Last Scarecrow at one point. I did their strengths and their weaknesses at the same time. And with each strength, I was like, okay, so if this is going to be a strength, how am I going to bring this to life in the story? If this is a weakness, how would I bring this to life? How are each of these going to affect the character at different moments? And that was just, I remember that's my thinking when I was doing character development for Last Scarecrow. But I don't regret that it took this long. I really feel like it would have been inferior had I pushed it out in my teens. Now I feel ready to make it the best it can be. And Marcel, like more power to you. I think sometimes we also have to be in the right place in our life to be ready to put the story out, right? And that's another factor. We have to be in the right place in life. And I think that's huge. So, on that note, I just want to say I really appreciate all y'all. It's been a fun little stream. If you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. Come join the community. I appreciate all you for being here and partaking in this. Obviously, I do writing streams every single day. We got many, many more days to come. And if you're following on Twitch or Facebook, or you're subscribing on YouTube, you'll be alerted when I go live. Next week is going to be a super fun week, actually. So tomorrow is going to be another casual, low key writing stream like this. So nothing planned because that's like my Mondays now. But we have a couple of cool events coming up next week. I want to say next weekend is going to be really busy. There's going to be some really fun events. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, we're going to be having a special guest, and we're going to be having a special conversation about mental health, balancing mental health with writing, which is so important. Saturday, I'm going to be introducing the brand new a live stream about writing blurbs for your story or creating a pitch for a script as requested by the community. That's what next Saturday's stream will be. And then Sunday, we have a couple published authors coming on for the next episode of the Create Right Now podcast. So we're going to be talking about how do you have like a writing brand in this day and age, or let's say, or podcasts. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into how do you start a podcast, especially a creative podcast. So next Sunday will be super chill as well, super fun. Got a lot planned for next week, and during the week I'm working on Last Scarecrow. So make sure you'll be alerted when I go live. It'll be a blast. All right, my friends. I appreciate all y'all. Thanks for joining me at this late writing session. It's almost midnight where I am, but I'm happy to I get to celebrate this all with all y'all. And that, my friends, is all that I got for you today. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.